Hello, this is News for Scotland. I'm Hugh, and this is Jeanette, and it's the 8th of May as we start today's programme. An interesting day because there's a lot of change in the Scottish Government, so we might as well start off with that. So, as you probably know, yesterday Parliament accepted the nomination of John Swinney, and he today took the oath of office at the Court of Session, so he is Scotland's First Minister. Now, John Swinney takes office just over a year following the dispute between the bitter argument between his predecessor, Humza Yousaf, and Kate Forbes. She came a very close second, and Humza Yousaf failed to really establish himself, I think, with the Scottish voters. He didn't really stop the slide of the SNP in the polls, but we'll come to that later on.
Yeah.
So John Swinney has taken over, and he's promised to be the unifying candidate, and that works on two levels. Yes, to unify the party, those who supported Kate Forbes last year, and also try to keep the, if you like, the pro-Sturgeon wing on board. But not only that, he also has to unite Parliament. But of course, the Scottish Government always has to get its votes through the government, and they don't have a majority. So usually that means that either the Greens or maybe Ash Regan will have to accept what the Scottish Government wants to do. So it's all about unifying. And is John Swinney the man to talk across the chamber and to bring other people on board? That's what he said yesterday, is it's my job to make sure that our legislation is discussed by other parties. I'm open to listening to ideas, and it's up to all of us in the chamber, to run the country. So it's all about being friendly and being mature in politics and breaking away from tribalism.
Yeah, so he did say he would listen to the ordinary members as well. He said that this time, the ordinary party members.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's probably in reference to Graham McCormick, the ordinary party member who did stand against him on Sunday. He had the nomination papers but was persuaded by John Swinney to not stand. So Swinney was moved in very quickly, and then the Scottish Parliament was able to vote on him yesterday. So that's gone through. Presumably the deal he made is that the ordinary members are going to be paid attention to. We're not going to ignore you.
Yeah,
suggesting that it did before.
It did put forward a sort of social welfare. That was his priority. He said, of course, Alex Salmon on the Times Radio show yesterday, the 7th of May, said his priority should be independence, then social welfare. And he certainly was loyal to Nicola Sturgeon and Humza Yousaf. But the fact he's bringing in Kate Forbes into that cabinet, you think that's a good sign?
Yeah, so we just heard, just before we started recording the show, that Kate Forbes is in fact Deputy Prime Minister, and in fact literally just 5 minutes ago I've just checked on STV News that she is going to be given the job, the portfolio of Economy Secretary, Anne Gallic. An unusual combination of portfolios there. The whole of the cabinet has just been announced. I'm not going to read out them all now, but some familiar faces and some others have moved around. But Kate Forbes has been brought into cabinet, and presumably she's happy with that job. Economy, well, of course, Scotland's not an independent country, so the economy portfolio is not what it could be. But presumably she's happy with that. But that's to bring that side of the party together, because I don't know what that says about independence, as you correctly point out. John Swinney listed his priorities yesterday, and independence was not first on the list.
No. Yeah.
So Alex Salmon is saying, yes, you are actually a party of independence. I guess he's also saying, look, independence is much higher in the polls than the SNP. So, it doesn't take a rocket science to work out, if the SNP puts independence first, that's going to annoy a lot of people, obviously. It's going to annoy a lot of unionists. It's going to annoy Douglas Ross. And Anna Sarwar, I think one or both of them probably said yesterday in Parliament, there's been too much talk about independence. What we've got to do is get the boats running on time, that sort of thing, as if you can't have the two together. They think, well, the unionists always say independence and running a country, those are two opposites, whereas Alex Salmon is obviously saying, no, in fact, if you want to run the country, independence is the best way of doing it, because then you've got all the levers at your disposal.
Yeah.
Okay, so
but we definitely can say Swinney is experienced, and he's maybe up for the challenges ahead. He has had previous experience of holding office significant offices a number of times.
Yes, he's been in government before, and he's been Deputy First Minister.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to discuss anything about why he took so long to actually put his name forward? A week ago, we were saying that right now we were saying, what if nobody's what if nobody's first minister, nobody's put a name forward? Now, why did John Swinney take so long?
Well, maybe it was personal reasons. He did say previously that last year that he was thinking about resignation, because he does have issues where his wife's MS isn't great. Although that was part of his speech, which was lovely. He was saying Elizabeth Quigley is his wife, former BBC reporter. She was backing him up. They had a talk about it, and she said, "Yeah, go for it." So she's given him all her support.
Yeah, and she and other members of John Swinney's family were in the Parliament chamber yesterday as he accepted the nomination and made his speech. We're going to put his speech and those of the other party leaders on our YouTube channel. In fact, I was in the middle of doing that earlier on today. I've got the clips ready. I just haven't uploaded them yet. So they'll be on quite soon. Just before we move on, we better talk about the Scottish Greens.
Well, an article in Bella Caledonia is sort of questioning the leadership, really, of the Greens, saying, is this going to come up now? We got at their conference, is it going to come up to question their leadership? Because their Bella Caledonia article was saying that the membership weren't too happy with things that were going on at the leadership level. Not sure. What do you think about that, Hugh?
Well, they have called the special conference. That came from the grassroots. In fact, that's really what started the whole process that led to the Butte House Agreement collapsing and the Greens being dismissed from government. But it actually started off with grassroots Green members themselves expressing dissatisfaction. Now, there's probably two things. Obviously, the climate change targets are not being met. We discussed that a couple of weeks ago. The Scottish Government's not said that we aren't going to try and get to net zero, but they just said that the interim targets are not possible. So we'll have to go back to another plan. But the Greens are unhappy about that. But obviously, the gender thing is still there. I noticed that Lorna Slater yesterday, in welcoming the new First Minister, also said we are going to introduce our bill on conversion therapy. Now, that's going to be very controversial. So the Greens are not letting go of the Green agenda. So that's going to be interesting. How does that work with Kate Forbes back in the government? There are going to be tensions in the new Parliament. Yeah,
there has been tensions among the membership in the SNP and the Greens, haven't they, about what priorities they want. Yeah.
Yep, and we'll see how John Swinney handles them, right? So
we'll move on to number 2, which was looking at tourism. It's that time of year, it's coming up. Oh, the summertime is coming.
And the trees are sweetly
blooming, and the mudgies are coming out soon. The mudgies, June, July and August, I'm sure if you know. It's just that if you come on YouTube and look at Scotland, you'll find immediately it's all about tourism, which obviously is an industry that we have here. And it talks about the 10 best places to go in Scotland. So I want you to talk to us on Facebook or here and say, do you agree with that, or is there anywhere else missing? There's one missing for me, Dumfries in Galloway, a magnificent place, and it's missing.
It is.
So it talks about Orkney, we'd all probably agree with that one. It talks about Glasgow, local tip, come to Glasgow, make sure you go to all the music that's there. There's lots of fabulous music.
It's a city of music.
It sure is. And the next one, I say it wrong every time. Go on here.
Aileen Donan Castle.
That's it. And you've been there, I've not. I believe there's lots of films of it.
Yeah, you see it on the road to Skye, and it sits there in an isolated position in the loch, and it's just very gloomy and atmospheric and creepy, and the Americans love it.
St Andrews, just to go and follow the footsteps of Will. Who is he?
I thought it was a Haymack Golf, that's what I was thinking.
Haymack Golf is a Loch Lomond. If you're anywhere near Bath, look up Joe Quinn's Facebook page and see all the fabulous music events that he's involved with around there. Stirling, get a historical Scotland card, you can get into the castle, and you go to the Wallace Monument, and what do you shout when you go to the Wallace Monument? Come on. Freedom! Braveheart still rings true. Glencoe, magnificent, beautiful, atmospheric place there at Glencoe. And of course, the massacre in Glencoe, made famous by our great songwriter Jim McLean, the song which talks about the 1692 massacre
That's a Cruel as the Snow. What's the song's actual title? Is it called?
Massacre of Glencoe, I think it's
But
called.
people usually call it Cruel as the Snow.
People often think it's a traditional folk song, and it isn't. Jim McLean wrote it, researched it all and wrote it, Sky, it tells you to go to the sky.
The Isle of Skye.
Isle of Skye, that's the one.
Although we did Scotland's space race a couple of weeks ago, because you can actually go to the sky from Scotland. We're talking about the Isle of Skye near the end.
Absolutely. And Edinburgh, of course, it always comes up then. If you've got your historical Scotland card, you can get into Edinburgh Castle. There's millions of other things to see in Edinburgh, of course. It's fabulous. It's galleries and it's theatre and all the other stuff.
Including the Parliament that we just talked about.
That one. Go and see that one. And then finally, it says the number one, would you believe, is Loch Ness. Sorry, Nessie. Although the Jacobite cruises that runs there are worried about the effects on tourism of the Southside proposed hydro scheme. Although you had said previously there's lots of hydro schemes across our lochs and things. And
yeah, well, the two biggest hydro schemes, as far as I know, the one at Ben Cruachan, that flows into Loch Fyne, and there's the Loch Sloy one, which flows into Loch Lomond. They're both pump gravity hydro. There's one loch up the mountain, you keep the water there, it flows down the mountain, drives the turbines, and it goes into the loch down below. Then at night you pump it back up again. Those are the bigger ones, but there's also a lot of smaller scale local hydro being installed. So Scotland has a lot of electric power generated by hydro, but there's potential for more. But every time you build a big scheme, it's going to have some spillover effects. It's going to have a downside, isn't it?
So why do people come here then? I think it's the culture. Maybe they've got some sort of historical link to Scotland as well. The music, the scenery, the growing demand for quality, locally produced Scottish food and drink, and that can be a really good, lucrative market as well. You may be influenced by the Travel Scotland Goals group on Facebook. I love that. It's got about 3,000 people out, but the sense of humour is just magnificent. Do have a look at that, I would say. Of course, there's this issue about Airbnb, especially rural communities, or indeed Edinburgh as well. Airbnb taking over accommodation where local people don't have access to affordable and that is an issue which is still ongoing. I know,
it leads to places being ghost towns in the winter, doesn't
it? That's people in Gatehouse of Fleet say that about that a wee bit. But the Scottish Government has supported some of these movements, saying things like sustainable rural tourism plans in south of Scotland. So that's involving the community, public bodies and commercial investment, and their interests are considered for that. A good note for our amazing food producers is that the Scottish Government has accepted the land-based learning review, and that's some ways of getting young people into agriculture and aquaculture, and including forestry, biodiversity and restoration. And one more good thing to say to our tourists comes from Professor John Robertson on Talking Up Scotland. He says crime is down by 40% over the last 20 years. And yet there's no noticeable drop on police budgets, unlike the rest of the UK. So he's saying, come to Scotland.
Yeah, crime figures are down. It's a strange thing. Opposition politicians often talk about crime. In fact, Douglas Ross said it yesterday that to go back to our earlier discussion, is saying John Swinney shouldn't be talking about independence. He should be talking about, and he listed several priorities, including crime. Well, obviously crime is a priority, but he seems to be giving the impression that there's a crime wave there, isn't he? When you look at the numbers, there is less crime than there was 20 years ago.
Feeding into this fear of crime, this is this idea. And really, I totally support Professor John Robertson, as indeed all the stats does.
Yeah, as we do in News for Scotland, he looks at the facts before he says it.
It's always good. So one of our other stories now is looking at Hamza Yusuf has said in the Irish Post that his experience of racism, he's had it all his life, but he really recently, when he was First Minister, had it, and overwhelmingly, and certainly with my experience of looking up issues that he was talking about, or when he was mentioned in YouTube, there was an awful lot of racist abuse, really. I thought...
Well, there is, I've seen that.
Yes, on his name, on his face, on his background, asking if he really is Scottish. Unbelievable stuff. And so we're asking, is there ingrained racism in the Conservative and Labour Party? And Squawbox is running a video right now on its website looking at an offensive racist terms towards people of Asian descent that a Labour activist, it says in this video, this Labour activist has said this when they were approaching a door and delivering leaflets. I'm not sure. I listened to the video. I wasn't absolutely sure if that was what was said, but that's what Squawk Box is running. And certainly calls against those supporting Palestine in Labour and Labour Muslim Network. They have no faith in Starmer, calling him an Israel supporter, and no faith in his ability to resolve ingrained racism in the Labour Party. And in 2021, the Conservatives found in their review evidence of discrimination and anti-Islam sentiment. And again in July 23, they apologised for the slow progress in tackling Islamophobia. And even looking at does that tie in, I think, does it with the US? What's happening in the US right now?
Yeah, you found a story that a group of Republican senators are threatening the International Court of Justice.
Yeah. I mean, this is obviously all over the US and growing here as well, and including Edinburgh. We've got the encampments, the university encampments, trying to protest against what's happening on the offensive on Gaza. And yeah, US senators have sort of taken on the International Criminal Court, and because they're trying to investigate the genocide, is what they call it, against. They're trying to investigate the case of genocide against Israel. And reports from the Israeli press indicated that the International Criminal Court could be preparing to arrest warrants. This is in the Israeli press. We don't know where else it is. Against senior government officials, including Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So prompted 12 Republican senators to sign a letter addressed to Mr. Ahmed Khan, the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court. And I just do wonder if there is some sort of Islamophobia in part of that. But, you decide for your own yourself. It's certainly an intimidatory letter. What do you think? It says, we write regarding the reports of the International Criminal Court may be considering issuing international arrest warrants against Israeli officials. Such actions are illegitimate and lack legal basis, and if carried out will result in severe sanctions against you and your institution. And then it says, the United States will not tolerate politicised attacks by the ICC on our allies. Target Israel and you will target us. If you move forward with the measures indicated in the report, we will move to end all American support for the ICC, sanction your employees and associates, and bar you and your families from the United States. You have been warned.
Is that a threat? Sounds like one to me.
It sure does.
But we should emphasise that's not American policy. That's 12 individual Republicans. But of course, if the Republicans win the election in November, it might be American policy.
It might be growing as well, that one yet. Yeah.
Okay, so let's hear from our American listeners to give us a comment.
Please.
On YouTube. We know people from the States are listening to the podcast edition, and I think there were quite a few comments from around the world on our shorts about the Gaza protests recently. Yeah. So let us know what you think.
Yep. And so our last story is on
the Scottish Parliament. So it's a week of anniversaries. A lot of anniversaries this year. Now, in fact, in May, 25 years ago, the first elections to the new Scottish Parliament took place. So it is actually 25 years as an institution. Now, how well is it doing? First of all, I had to look at some statistics on John Curtis's website, What Scotland Thinks. And there's one graph which asks, how well is the Scottish Government doing? Is the Parliament representing Scottish interests better than the Westminster Parliament? This is over a whole 25 years. Now, for the first 7 or 8 years, people are quite indifferent, but then suddenly the Scottish Parliament goes up in popularity from around 2007, 2008. Happens to be when Alex Salmond was in charge, by the way, and it remains pretty high. So the support for the Scottish Parliament and for the idea that it is representing the country is consistently high since that period. Maybe dropped a wee bit in the last couple of years, but those are all on the website What Scotland Thinks. Yeah. So the Scottish Parliament now has become established, and most people, apart from a few unionists, most of the Scots want it to stay there, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
But we've been looking at an article in the Bella Caledonia magazine. That's an excellent online magazine by Tala Jakub, and she's suggesting that the intention was to create better representation of not only males and females, but also other groups of our culture. Is Scotland fully represented in the Parliament? Still some work to be done there, I think she's saying.
Yeah, that's what she said. I loved her sort of like she said, we have driven to improve participation, to lived experience, etc. But this is all sort of on the periphery of influencing. I thought that was really rather beautifully put. And often without resources, and often without the element that matters most, power redistribution. Also, she was saying there's still work to be done there. But yeah, in putting it in context with Westminster, then really we have got a more representative parliament, much more than Westminster has of the people of the UK.
Yeah, Westminster's still very heavily dominated by people who went to 2 universities and half a dozen schools.
And certain skills, that's it, exactly.
So we don't have that. I'm not saying everything's perfect in Scotland, but I don't think we have that concentration that everybody in the Parliament comes from the same place.
Yeah.
It's not like that.
But I like her article, and I think, yes, we have more work to do, and we do need to be even more democratic than we are now. And that's what I hope for in the future.
Of course, sorting with parties, of course. Really, if you want to be into Parliament, you have to be in a party, don't you?
Yeah,
So
me
I
too,
suppose if we're talking about representation, you have to say to the parties, who are you putting up as candidates? And that's what it devolves down to the parties themselves to be open and reflecting the people that they try to represent, doesn't it?
And you take this back to Sweeney, who says he's going to listen to the membership more. So,
Swinney.
Is it Swinney? Sorry, Swinney. I keep calling him that. Swinney.
That's another guy. Well, listen, we're going to try and keep these shows a bit shorter now because we are putting out a lot of different stuff on YouTube, and you might have noticed some of that. We've been doing YouTube shorts, and there are some more in the can which will be appearing when we can manage to get them all processed and all that over the next couple of days. And go ahead.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, it helps us a lot if you do that.
It really does,
if you are watching, we really do need a subscribe. And we need 1,000, actually. We've got just over 200 subscribers. And in fact, we just started YouTube about 4 weeks ago, so that's good. But we do need to have at least 1,000. And we do want to establish News for Scotland as one of the people that you come to get honest news, honest reflections on what's going on in Scottish politics, as and various other people in the new media trying to keep people in Scotland fully informed. These are interesting times for Scotland, particularly between now and the elections in 2026. Right? So News for Scotland and others are trying to get people involved in the democratic process. So give us a hand and subscribe. I better shut up now. I think we've gone too long.
Thanks very much. That's us, really.
Okay, so just finally, good luck to John Swinney and the new Scottish Government, which is taking shape right now. So, and thanks for watching. Give us a comment underneath and subscribe. And this is Hugh and Jeanette, and we'll be back next week.
Thanks very much. Bye now.